school board meeting, governing board meeting session at whatever 6:01. Ada, would you take roll call, please?
Is Mr. Nielsen?
Here.
Mrs. Contreras? Mr. Rader?
Here.
Mrs. Reyes? Mrs. Sashanek?
Here.
Thank you so much. If you'd like to join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd like to take just a moment of silence here, maybe to take a few seconds and be thankful for what appears to be the end or the minimization of this pandemic, and for the opportunity we all have to get back to work as normal, hopefully in the next little while. Thank you so much. Are there any statements from any members of the school board this evening? Amy, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I know that this is kind of later in June, but I wanted to kind of give recognition. I know all of our schools ended the year continuing to show the innovation and determination to do everything we can for our students, and that was really shown even more so to me. At the end of the year, I was able to watch the Fine Arts Academy host a YouTube concert where students were shown singing from home, and I really loved watching that. And then I was able to be a part of the promotion ceremonies in Littleton STEM Academy, where they were the 8th grade promotion was broadcasted over YouTube, and I loved the comments that were made by 2 student speakers in the beginning. And then lastly, I got to celebrate at Fine Arts Academy again for their drive-through promotion ceremony, and got to see the Changemaker fence decoration that one of their teachers and students took on. And everything was just inspiring, and I wanted to speak on that for my moment here.
We all had an opportunity to participate in those promotion services. I enjoyed where I was. It was good to see those kids. I guess I was touched by the number of kids that were there, that brought their parents, had to stand by the 2021, stop the car so they could get across the walkway there and move forward. But it was great to see all of them participate, families get out and participate, and all that stuff. So thank you. Dr. Freeman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everyone. Buenas tardes a todos. Our hopes of postponing our regular meeting long enough for the legislature to come up with a budget and the governor to sign that were dashed, and the House is adjourned again until Thursday. I understand the Senate's still working, but I haven't been able to get an update on their progress. So our work to propose a budget for next year will have to go forward based on components that are known, and some minimums and some conservative estimates. We'll have a chance to revise those hopefully by the time we adopt a budget in July. That date is set for the 13th, and if that doesn't work, we could try again September 14th. Good news is that the budget framework right now is not good for state agencies, service agencies. So hopefully we can get a budget that gets better as they continue to work on it. School communities were busy with many fun-filled education events at the end of the year, as Ms. Sausnick mentioned, and of course our 8th grade promotion ceremonies and parades to celebrate the 735 students who are ready to continue their journey into high school and beyond. Families decorated their vehicles, drove through our school color balloon arches at each of the campuses. Many of these parades included Kids at Hope scrolls, yard signs to take home, lots of music, honking horns, and picture taking. Kinders were included in parades at Country Place, Littleton, Quinton, and Tres Rios, Collier. 8th graders were treated to waffle bars during promotion practice, and Collier celebrated their accomplishments with a live broadcast to families. Country Place Leadership Academy ended the year of activities highlighting amazing kindergarten celebrations and parades. As mentioned, each kinder class students were recognized for their leadership, and 8th grade promotion was a hybrid with inspiring student addresses. I'll talk more about that in a little bit. Astoria Vista STEM Academy held unique events for 8th graders, including a breakfast, memory book, and special pizza and snack chill time in the cafeteria. Other classrooms participated in various fun activities to end the year, including water day, special STEM projects, memory book signing, and popsicle parties. Fine Arts Falcons showcased their many talents during promotion ceremonies, in which broadcast to the community through Zoom. 8th graders from Be the Change created banners and surrounded it with many of the ways in which they're part of change, as Ms. Sochnik mentioned. All Firebird students, families, and staff celebrated with a large variety of activities at the Littleton STEM Academy. They host our preschool program, so pre-K was included in their parades. Firebirds had various activities such as promoting summer learning, TED Talks, and reflecting on their goals for the year. The Quinton STEM Academy treated 8th grade students to tacos and snow cones donated by Flacco's Tacos and their PTA. Students created a slideshow highlighting their future career and some of the aces in their lives. The slides were shared with families at the 8th grade promotion ceremony, and Quinton's PTA gifted 8th graders with a shirt featuring the names of all their peers. Kindergarten students had mini ceremonies in their classrooms that were shared with their families via Google Meet, which we used during the school year. At the Tres Rios Service Academy, students watched a video collage that captured some unforgettable moments of the 2021 school year, and 8th graders were recognized during their class breakfast and award ceremony. At their promotion, Pumas also had end of the year reflections, kickball games, and of course, yearbook signings. It was a great end to a truly unique year. I would like to thank President Nielsen for his inspiring video message that was shared at the promotion ceremonies, and Ms. Sousnick for making time to represent the board at our schools. Thank you to all the board members who joined in virtually to celebrate students' milestones. I had an opportunity to attend some of the ceremonies in person and was reminded that teachers should also be recognized at the end of the year. Rain Widener, who was an 8th grader who also served in the Superintendent Student Advisory Committee or Council this year, made this point in her promotion speech, which I want to read a portion of to everyone. She said, "A couple of weeks ago, I realized how much our teachers have been involved in our lives since we were young. Our teachers didn't just teach us 2 + 2 or how to read a passage, but they also have given us some of the most important values that we will carry with ourselves forever. They have taught us things from how to light $1 on fire without burning it, and how to become a millionaire. They've taught us integrity, equality, leadership, and have helped shape us into who we are. Our teachers are like a temporary family who've helped guide us and help us grow. So thank you to all the teachers who've been with us through these 9 years of our lives, because without you, we wouldn't be the people we are today." Well said for an 8th grader. Staff around our schools and in the district office also celebrated with the end of the year virtual recognition ceremonies. They gathered in cafeterias and conference rooms and work areas to watch pre-recorded ceremony components, and employees were welcomed by their superintendent, heard a message from governing board members, staff members were honored for their years of service, and then it was on to the awards portion. Westside Impact Teachers of the Year, Administrator of the Year, Site Awards, Golden Key and Treasure Hunter Awards were presented. Retirees were also recognized, and they had a short video for each person. Each site received their awards ahead of the ceremony, so administrators were able to present the actual awards to the employees by pausing the videos and personally handing those out. May 26th was the first day of our summer meal service for breakfast and lunch, including meals for the weekend. Bus routes began June 8th to deliver free meals to our community, and so far, summer feeding program has already served over 14,000 meals. We're planning for a variety of leadership development opportunities when staff return for the 21-22 school year, beginning with leadership retreat on July 12th. New teachers will be here on July 13th, and returning teachers start their professional development for pre-service activities on July 19th. So even though summer solstice was just Sunday, the school year will be here before you know it. And our theme for the coming school year is We Believe. We've set the stage for future-ready dynamic digital schools, and we'll continue working collaboratively to expand signature projects, to sustain PLCs, and to revitalize school-wide citizenship fidelity, to integrate social emotional learning activities. And our goal continues to be delivering programs that animate and engage students and families, because we believe everything is possible and there's nothing we can't do. In closing, I'd like to express our appreciation to Sergio Salcido with GB Transportation for his donation of $300 in water bottles for Fine Arts Academy, and to Barbara Maddox and Leslie Casillas Foundation for the $50 scholarship for 8th grade students at Collier Business Academy. And Mr. President, that's all I have this evening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Freeman. Things continue to move forward despite that there's no school, right? Ms. Vanderwater, you got something for us this evening?
I do. President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, and community. I am excited to present to you our program showcase highlight for this evening. Two of our district social workers, Ms. Lauren Keefe and Ms. Bella Alvarado, will showcase a few of the ways that our social worker team supported students, staff, and community during the FY2021 school year during some of the most challenging times. They will share data on their support services, highlight a few ways that students and the community received support, share implementation of social emotional learning, and provide examples of how they assisted in developing an increased awareness of equity, diversity, and tolerance across and within our organization. Please welcome Ms. Keith and Ms. Alvarado to present this evening's showcase.
President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, executive team, and community, we definitely appreciate this time and your guys' willingness to want to dive into social work a little bit more. I'm definitely very appreciative for our team. I feel like we do a fantastic job of remaining strong and connected and communicating so that our services remain the best that they can be across the school district as a whole. So I hope that you guys get some more information from this presentation, and if you guys have any questions at the end, we can answer then.
Pause it. Thank you everyone for being here. Today, the social work team will be doing a showcase presentation. Today, we'll be discussing how COVID has impacted our Littleton school community. We will review district data that was collected throughout the school year. We will talk about services provided by our social workers and what we are looking forward to for the next year. Please keep in mind that our presentation is limited, so we are limiting the amount of information provided, but our slides will show more information. Here is our social worker monthly tracking form. It is an overview of the services provided by our district social workers. It is services that were tracked every month from each social worker for each school for the 2021 school year. We had over 5,000 touch points. You will see we had an increase of student individual sessions, parent contact, staff contact, and more. We will be discussing more throughout our presentation.
So within our community, there was an overall feeling of loneliness and isolation. From a district perspective, all of the students' referrals that came in surrounded around anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation, and grief counseling and support for the unexpected death of loved ones. As I stated, these request forms were new this year on a Google form. So the breakdown of referrals from all 7 schools within the district, there was a consistent area of concern, and that was the change in emotions, behavior, and mood from our students, whether that be within the classroom or at home. So just kind of taking on that toxic stress from the home environment and the uncertainty and bringing it into the school classroom.
As Lauren mentioned, this is our first time implementing our social worker support request form. These referrals were completed by our teachers and our staff, and this data that is collected is also letting us know what the students are in need of and what concerns teachers may have for our students. You will see below the graph displays the data that was collected for the 2021 school year for each school. This data is a little skewed this year, and that's because, again, this is a new form. So not all schools filled out the request form, but next year we know we will have more information to provide.
This data is taken from the Crisis Response Network of Arizona. This is important to us because we do utilize this community service for our students when they are in imminent danger to themselves and they are not able to contract for safety with us. So essentially that means that they are not able to confirm or promise us that they don't feel those suicidal thoughts or ideations anymore. And they still have those thoughts that are ongoing.
In this school year, the social worker team created a student survey. We wanted to see where students were at and what areas they may need help with. And through the survey, we asked, what do you miss most about being in person or being at school? And as you will see, a majority of our students were missing all of it. They were missing our teachers, they were missing friends and socializing, the ability to interact with one another. And it will show again how our students were dealing with the isolation and anxiety due to COVID. And through our contact with our student survey and getting that information, we also were contacting parents. We had an increase in parent contact, and that was due to our students' referrals from the teachers for our student support referral requests. We also had to contact parents more because of the involvement we had with our students, because students were now in person. We had to contact parents to arrange those meetings with our students, also introduce ourselves and communicate with parents that way. And through our communication with our parents, they were asking us for additional resources, such as food resources, financial resources, and more. And with these food resources that we're needing, one of our social workers, Mr. Mitchen, assisted in a food drive for our homeless youth at Tres Rios, and they were able to collect food for our homeless youth. We also had social workers work with 2 families that were displaced during COVID due to a fire. Also, we had parents and families that were needing help with homelessness and displacement. There was an increase in mental resources needed for not only for our students, but our parents. And through our contact with our parents and our students, we collected all that information and we created our Google Classroom website. It was in the website where we created, and you could see we were provided different resources for our parents and also through the newsletter. So it was not only our parents, but our community that were also getting that information.
So working through our teachers to our students, we all kind of provided different professional development for our staff. Some of these topics included trauma-informed care based upon the state mandate SB 1468, which took place this year. everybody within the school district was given suicide prevention training. We also covered topics like social emotional learning, which was big this year and will remain big in the future. And then other things like team morale, stress reducers, self-care, resources, examples, and tools to kind of use in the moment for the staff. And then just as you guys have been given this same data, we also presented that to our staff so that they knew exactly what their students were in need of.
Social workers make a difference. Through our survey, we not only collected that information, but also our students shared some really insightful information with us also. So our social worker, Lauren, took the good comments that our students said, created this work cloud, and we also took some of the information they shared with us and posted it here. But we also had some of our administrators share their experiences. Gordon?
At Quentin STEM Academy, we value the support of our social worker, Ms. Lauren Keith, provides to our staff and students. Lauren helps students, parents, and school staff with any social and emotional needs. She acts as a partner in identifying needs that interfere with learning and social interactions with peers. Students get the services they need, or she provides resources for the family. Lauren works with all students and their families to resolve social and emotional and behavioral problems. We do this through assessment, consultation, student family requests, through development and implementation of behavior plans, and providing indirect and direct services. Lauren helps to connect the school, home, and community to help students be as successful as possible.
Members of the board, Dr. Freeman, executive team, and Littleton community. My name is Nicole Durazo, and I'm the proud principal of Estrella Vista STEM Academy for Engineering. I am honored to be here to share the positive impact our social worker team has had on our school and district. Social workers are the link between the home, school, and community in providing direct and indirect services to students, families, and school personnel to promote and support students' academic and social success. The many services they provide help to fulfill our school mission and allow students to focus on learning. During my first year at EV, we experienced the tragic loss of one of our teachers. The entire social worker team was on site to provide support to our students, families, and employees to process this devastating loss. They provided tools and strategies to cope with this unfortunate event and allowed our staff, students, and community to heal through this process and focus on teaching and learning. From the onset of our closure, they have reached out to students and parents to offer support and resources to those in need. They connect families with other community agencies for medical needs, additional behavioral and mental supports, utility assistance, food resources, and any other services that might be needed. They also help families navigate the educational system to fully utilize our school and community resources. They have provided our students with either one-on-one or group counseling sessions focused on coping strategies, social skills, conflict resolution, anger management, and understanding and accepting self and others. This service allows an outlet for our students so they can focus on learning in the classroom. They participate and offer support with special education assessments and help to develop and implement positive behavior intervention strategies. They play a critical role with our crisis team and are instrumental in providing support for our students and families in crisis. They have also provided additional support to our staff. It was a challenging year for us all, but especially for our teachers. And our social workers were there to lend a listening ear and support for our staff. They have provided training on social emotional learning with valuable resources to use in the classroom. They are treasure hunters through and through and extremely valuable members of the Littleton community. Thank you.
For the Fine Arts Academy, I want to thank Lawrence Keith for all the hard work you've done for us this year. We appreciate your support when we had difficult situations arise and needed a little additional help. You were always there to help us. We also appreciate the professional development you delivered on a regular basis during our Wednesday morning meetings. We know that the strategies you were teaching us not only helped our students to have a healthier life socially and emotionally, but it also helped pull many teachers through during difficult times of the pandemic. So we appreciate you, Lauren, and thank you for everything that you do for us.
So I hope that you guys got a good overview of what we've been busy with this last school year. Looking forward to the next school year. We as a district have agreed upon an SEL curriculum that will be implemented across the board. This is all things EQ. There's just a little bit of data from their website saying that, that they saw a dramatic decrease in student discipline referrals, both the number and severity, and that overall a 10-point increase in student engagement, campus-wide well-being, and hope. So we are looking forward to kind of diving more into this curriculum and how it's going to affect our district as a whole. A personal goal within the social work team that we have is to have one social worker at each school setting. And so I am happy to tell you that we have 2 more social workers confirmed for the district going into next year. So that's a total of 5 so far. So we look forward to continuing to service our community and our students as best we can. If this time we are open to any questions or comments that you guys may have. And thank you for your time and consideration.
Actually, we do have an update. We recently found out we will have 6 social workers for the 21-22 school year. So we're very excited to have that. Yay! Thank you.
That's great. Members of the board, any comments or questions?
Mr. President?
Please, John, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for that wonderful presentation. I think when we think about education, it's so important that we think about our students holistically. And again, I know this was mentioned many times, but what a pivotal role social and emotional development also plays in the education of our students. So I believe that this resource is invaluable. And I, again, can't thank you enough for the work that you do for our district and for our students and the support that you provide to all of our staff. Just a couple quick questions for me. I think a number of times in the presentation you mentioned that contacts had increased. Do we have a sense or a percentage, if you will, as to how much the program increased this year, and can we attribute that to the social disruption caused by the pandemic?
Yeah, I think that probably comparing the data from just the last 2 years prior to when I came into the district, I think that this last year our number definitely jumped up at least a good, I want to say like 30%, if not more, would be a good number to put on it, or an accurate number to put on it. And yeah, I do agree that it's due to the pandemic. There was just a lot more communication and a lot more moving parts that needed to take place. And so I feel like it helped highlight as a district how well we work within not only our own teams, but as a school-wide base as a whole. So when it comes to admin and social work team, and then the teacher and the students and the families, I feel like we collaborate very, very well, and everybody has the need of the student in mind.
Mr. President, can I just ask one more quick question?
Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. You talked about utilizing the crisis response network potentially for acute student cases. Can you describe what kind of the handoff looks like and/or parental involvement in those cases?
Yeah, so the reason why we put those numbers in there for this year was important because, usually we are the middleman between our students, the school, and a higher level of care. So typically that's the Crisis Response Network. And they come to the school and they usually complete their own questionnaire form with the student and their parent present or family member, representative, whatever that looks like. And from there, they decide if the student should be hospitalized or not. So we typically include all that information within our threat assessment that we complete as well for the district. So all that paperwork is together. But like I said, this year they were the middleman. So I did, have to utilize their services on a couple of occasions just to make sure that the student was receiving the needs that they needed within the home first and foremost. And then from there, whatever those wraparound services look like, if they then got in touch with a case manager and are getting services within the home or outside of the home within an agency, or had to be hospitalized, whatever that looked like on an individual need basis.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other board members got questions or comments they'd like to ask at this time? If not, I'd maybe just address one of them. You mentioned the request forms. I assume they're electronic this year. You've not done it electronically in the past, so you just got started. I don't know how many, but that you're going to use that in the future. Is that a form that you do on an iPad or something like that? How is that inputted and how it all be pulled together?
So the form is through our Google. It's a Google form, and all the teachers have access to it. We include it in our signatures to our teachers, or anytime we send out an email, it's included in the signatures so the teachers have access to the form at any time. And it's geared towards each specific school, so they choose which school they want to fill it out from. And so we plan to continue to use this again to address the needs and concerns of the students and our teachers, but also find out like what it is that we are doing good at and what areas we might need to work on. So that's what we're hoping for in the future.
Thank you. It sounds good. It's a good tool to use. I appreciate that. If there's no other comments, Ms. Mandelwater, thank you so much. And thank you for the presentation tonight. It's been very helpful to, I think, all of us. Insight, just all those things that go on that don't just happen right there in the classroom. So we appreciate that.
Thank you for having them. Thank you, Ms. Keith and Ms. Alvarado. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Item number 8, call to the public.
There are none.
Thank you. None. So item number 9 is consent agenda. Are there any members of the board that would like to pull any of the items in the consent agenda?
No.
If not, can I have a motion to accept the agenda as written?
This is Kathy. I'll make the motion to accept the consent agenda as written.
This is Amy, and I'll second.
Thank you.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mrs. Contreras, I'm sorry, Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Soshinek,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Moving on, item number 10. Mr. French, what kind of magic can you work for us this evening?
Thank you, Mr. President. I will try to work my magic. President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, and Littleton community, this evening we'll be discussing the fiscal year 21-22 proposed budget. When looking at the budget life cycle, there are many dates and milestones the district adheres to. We begin looking at the budget in the spring in preparation to bring a proposed budget to the board in June. This is followed by a public hearing and a budget adoption in July. This year, since as of this presentation, the legislature has not passed a budget for FY22, the Auditor General's Office, who creates and distributes budget forms to school districts, has announced that districts will have the opportunity to revise prior to September 15th, and any changes to the adopted budget due to changes in the law will be retroactive to the beginning of the school year. In a typical year, the first revision would happen in December if necessary. Other dates to note in this timeline include October 2021, which is when the tax bill will be mailed to individuals and businesses within the district boundaries, which include primary and secondary tax rates, as we will discuss later in this presentation. The district's last opportunity to revise the budget is in May of 22, and the annual financial report, which is a report on budgeted expenditures, is due in October of 2022. As I mentioned on the last slide, the legislature has not passed a budget for FY22. On this proposed budget, we are making conservative estimates to changes in inflation and other changes to the base support level we have heard have traction at the Capitol, but are not signed into law by the governor as of this date. Our first estimate is an increase of 275 ADM for FY22. There have been many indications families were not sending children to school last year, and that many children that were supposed to be kindergarten last year were held back by parents. We have begun to see a strong enrollment push for the district since returning to in-person learning in March. To date, we have gained 74 students and have a larger than normal kindergarten enrollment. For these reasons and the strong residential growth in the district that the district is experiencing, we are expecting a strong recovery from our enrollment decline from last year. We are expecting an increase of approximately 1.97% to the base support level, which equals $85.98 per weighted ADM. The base support level is extremely important to the budget formula. It will be multiplied by the weighted ADM to determine our general budget limit. We're also expecting the transportation support level, or TSL, to increase for Littleton from $2.24 to $2.27 per mile. This amount is used in the calculation of the TSL and is ultimately rolled into our M&O budget. Items that have also been discussed at legislature but have not been added to this budget include a change in some Group B weights, which are mainly SPED weights, as well as a small weight for gifted education that does not currently exist. If passed by the legislature, the additional weighted ADM will be added to a future budget revision. Here's a review of the past 10 years ADM along with current year projections. Due to current year funding, the district is required to estimate and project what our FY22 ADM will be and build the proposed and adopted budget on those projections. What you see here is the district's estimate based on the information we have available today, which is an increase of 5.21%. Looking at the rest of the chart, we see consistent growth with only 2016 and 2021 showing declines. Reviewing our M&O budget calculations, the base support level and transportation revenue control limit are added together to get a revenue control limit of $33,263,000. The M&O override is $4,679,000, which is a decrease of $471,000 due to it being calculated on prior year, which would be FY21's 100th day enrollment. We are currently estimating carry forward from FY21 of $693,000. This number can still be a bit fluid with orders coming in the last week of June. You'll also see here a transfer to the Energy Savings Fund of $199,000. This is the same as the prior 3 years, and additional Prop 123 money of $367,000, providing an overall FY22 general budget limit of $38,804,000. This is an increase of $1,360,000 from our last revised budget in FY21. This slide is comparing the base support level, the average daily membership, the weighted student count, the M&O override, and the overall M&O budget by fiscal year. You'll notice the increased base support level and increased anticipated student count will result in a larger budget in FY22. One thing I would like to note is the M&O override is calculated using prior year 100th day, resulting in a lower budget authority for FY22. A review of our district's assessed valuations history shows that the last few years of the recession, well, it shows the last few years of the recession, with property values showing a decline in 2012 and 13. You can see in 2014 through 2016, a moderate increase in property values after the recession and exceptional growth from 2017 to 2021. Annual growth of existing property is limited to 5% annually. This was due to Prop 117 years back. However, growth from reclassification of property and construction is not limited. This upswing in value is credited to new construction in the district and the conversion of vacant land to residential property. With a high number of building permits in Avondale, it is expected the district will continue to see strong assessed value growth in the next few years as well. There are two types of tax rates in this that this valuation is applied to. The primary tax rate funds maintenance and operations, capital, and adjacent ways, while the secondary tax rate funds voter-approved bonds and overrides. These tax rates will be discussed on the next slide. This slide gives us a 10-year look back at tax rates for the district. Using preliminary calculations, the district is estimating a tax rate for FY22 to have a slight decrease of just over 4 cents. For a $100,000 valued home, this would be a tax bill annually of $550.56. Values of homes for tax purposes have been increasing, with the average value in 2021 of $120,918, according to the Arizona Department of Revenue. This would be an average tax bill of $665.73, approximately $27.23 a year increase on the average home. The truth in taxation statute deals only with the amounts of levy in adjacent ways. It is funded on the primary tax rate and is authorized by the governing board. Littleton has set a levy for adjacent ways of $625,000 in FY22. A truth in taxation notice will be posted and a hearing will take place with the adopted budget in July. Our publication for truth in taxation requires the district post the levy amount for a $100,000 home with the levy and without. Without the levy, the rate would be 0, and with the levy on a $100,000 home would be $20.15. This is a $11.20 decrease on a $100,000 home from the prior year. This was calculated into the combined tax rate on the previous slide and still accounts for the 4 cents decrease to the overall tax rate. At this point, I would like to see if the board has any questions.
Any members of the board, would you like to ask Mr. French any questions at this time?
This is Kathy. I just have one question, and maybe I just don't quite understand it. But when you talk about the taxation rate and you indicated a decrease, do you take that over X amount of years to determine if that's a continued decrease, or is that looked at yearly, or how do you look at that?
President Nielsen, Member Reyes, that is an annual calculation. We have to take the assessed valuation of the district into account when we look at tax rates on a year-by-year basis.
So there's no way to project it over long term, longer than 12 months?
Member Reyes, that is something that Dr. Freeman and I do look at. We have been very cognizant and conservative when it comes to tax rates, when we look at bonding capacity, M&O overrides, capital overrides, and what that would do to our tax rate. So we are looking out more than 12 months. However, to get to this level of precision, it's usually about 12 months at a time.
Thank you.
John, any?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Mr. French, I think I ask this question every year about how we calculate our ADM, so I apologize, but it looks like as the result of the pandemic in 2021 or fiscal year 2021, we lost about 550 kids or so. And then it looks like this year with full reopening plus our dynamic learning models, we're gaining about 271 of those kiddos back. So, there's about 200 or so kids out there that do we have a sense as to what happened to those youth, and or is this a really conservative projection of our ADM, and we hope that we're actually going to be much closer to that 5823 meeting, or not, excuse me, 5,823 number when we revise our budget in September or December.
Yes, President Nielsen, Member Rader, this is a conservative estimate. When we brought to you the budget last year, we did not have COVID at the time, and we were just looking at a slight decrease due to the Academy of Math and Science coming into the district boundaries and possibly some of the students attending there. And since then, we've had COVID, and we do want to make sure that we're conservative when it comes to our ADM estimate. We do have the opportunity in December and May to revise that estimate and capture that budget authority. I let Dr. Freeman know that the last thing I want to do is have to revise down again in December. So I definitely took a conservative approach.
Anything else? I think the only question, Amy, anything from you? Rich, I think the only question I might have is, we don't have a state budget. How does this that you've presented to us tonight, if we do get something from them? I know your crystal ball's out there. We're conservative on it. Is there a possibility to go higher, or this is as high as we can go? Or what are some of the probabilities that could happen if they do pass something that's a little bit more favorable for us?
Yeah, President Nielsen, we have taken a very conservative approach when it comes to our base support level. Inflation has been projected by the JLBC to be 1.21%. That's, from what we can tell, that's given in the budget for coming up. There was also some money from Classroom Site Fund that's going to be added to the base. That's how we came up with the 1.97%. Like I had mentioned before, there's also discussions on changing some of the weights in our Group B, which would add to our weighted ADM, which would give us more budget capacity. We did not add those because those have not been passed into law, even though that there are discussions in the legislature to add those weights in the future. What we will do, depending on when legislature passes a budget, we have the opportunity. When the legislature does pass a budget, the Auditor General will come out with new forms that align with the laws that are passed. We'll have the opportunity to revise our budget before September 15th, which would be retroactive to any of the laws.
Thank you, I appreciate that. So with that, we have an action that we need to take care of in line with that. We have a motion that we need to do to allow the budget at least to be put together in this proposed form.
This is Kathy. I'll move the governing board adopt the proposed expenditure budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 as presented.
This is John. I'll second.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Soshenik.
Aye.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the presentation. You're in the barrel again for another one, sir.
Yes, President Nielsen, members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman and Littleton community. This evening, I'm excited to present. I'd like to review with the board proposed raises for the fiscal 21-22 school year. Again, we would have liked to do this with knowing what the exact numbers were going to be from legislature, but without them having passed a budget, we're going to take our best stab at what we can do for our staff members. The district is proposing a salary increase for all returning staff of 3%. The district would split this raise as shown on the slide above between maintenance and operations, and the ESSER funds received from the federal government. As of now, the ESSER portion of the increase will be a one-time amount, as ESSER funds are one-time funding, those aren't reoccurring. However, the district is hopeful to request to the board at a later date the ESSER increase become a permanent increase to employees' base salary, depending on the ADM growth in the district over this next year. The M&O portion of the raise is being recommended to be a permanent increase to the employee's base salary. The proposed raises would cost the district approximately $539,000 in M&O and $385,000 in ESSER. These ESSER funds were included in the ESSER presentation that I gave in April. The district has attempted to wait on legislatures, like I had mentioned before. Even though the budget is still being developed, we feel that this raise will keep the district competitive with neighboring districts whose raises are between 2 and 7%. We also believe the raise is conservative enough to weather any uncertain legislative budget. As mentioned in my last presentation, we anticipate the increase to the base support level of 1.97%. There are additional talks that would also adjust some of the Group B weights, as well as add a gifted weight to the funding formula. These changes to provide the district additional funds above the 1.97% we had discussed earlier. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any of you have any questions on that presentation on salaries and raises for next year?
Mr. President, I have a couple questions.
Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So for the average teacher, what is 3% end up being approximately per year?
Average teacher salary is $47,000. So we're looking at just under $1,500.
Okay, thank you for that. And then I guess the second question I have is, I understand the point you were trying to make about hopefully replacing the ESSER portion of this with future district funds, but I mean, there is an inherent danger in funding a raise which we hope will be ongoing with one-time funds. And if there is a foreseen circumstance in the district that, for example, that ADM goes down, even though it's projected, to ever be in a position where we had to go back and cut pay. So, I mean, has there been any discussion or thought as to maybe paying that one-time fund out and a stipend, kind of a one-time stipend versus an ongoing raise? And can you speak to that a bit?
Sure. Member Rader, I apologize if I had not made that clear. That is the district's intention, is that the M&O portion would be added to their base salary, where the ESSER portion would be paid out as a stipend, which would be a one-year stipend since it's one-time funds, and that based on ADM growth in the district, we would hope to absorb that into an M&O raise in the future.
No, thank you for that. And I apologize if I misunderstood. So thank you very much for that clarification.
I think, Mr. President and Mr. Rader, the discussion we had was it would be spread out, of course, across the course of their pays, but on a separate line on their check so they can see it clearly as like other stipends would also be. So each time they get paid, they'll see a base salary and an ESSER amount, and then any other stipends in it.
Thank you, Mr. Rader, for clarifying it. This is Kathy. I also had the same question, so I also perhaps didn't understand it as well, but I have no question with the stipend other than we all know once you give stipend and for some reason, if the funds are not there and you are unable to fund it, I'm assuming there'll be a very good explanation that goes out with the raises, letting people know this is a one-time stipend, that certainly the goal is to work toward, getting the funds for it, but it'll be made clear, I'm sure, that it is only a one-year stipend and we can't guarantee it in the future, correct?
Member Reyes, you're absolutely correct. If the board approves this evening, this will be communicated out clearly to staff.
Thank you.
Ms. Reyes, do you think it'd be helpful if we ask the staff to opt in or opt out on that stipend?
Well, I don't think you'll get any opt-outs, but
It is
No.
an affirmative action on their part.
That is true, and I guess that is well documented, so I'll leave that up to the decision of the administrators. It almost seems kind of ridiculous, but that's just my own opinion.
Well, we're here to help.
Thank you. Somehow I saw a tad criticism there, but thank you for offering. I
Thank you very much. If there's no other questions, can you put that motion up there?
This is Amy, and I'll move that the governing board approve the salary raises for staff for fiscal year 2021-2022.
This is Kathy. I'll second that.
Thank you.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Soshanek.
Aye.
Thank you all so much. And French, thank you. Dr. Freeman.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'm hoping that people had an opportunity to look over some of the material presented for this item this evening. And as I said in the update, I apologize for not having brought this before the board for discussion before this evening. But what happened was an opportunity sort of snuck up on us, and we wanted to take advantage of that, and that's put this on a short timeline and requires quick action if we want to take advantage of it. So we had been in talks with adding resources to our signature programs, and one of those was coding a curriculum to go at the Littleton STEM Academy for Computer Science. And a couple of the things we're aware of. One is that while our teachers have pretty good training in core content and pedagogy, they don't always know about medical science and services or engineering degrees or coding or computer programming. So we did find a resource that has a curriculum in coding, and we're aware that there's thousands of potential jobs available in the Valley for kids who can learn to do this. Our intent is to prepare kids in elementary school for more advanced content training in high school and post-high school, plus with our signature programs to help motivate them to be more engaged in their learning, keep up with their reading, and understand the importance of how the mathematics they're learning applies to future careers. So the issue was the expense of bringing in these programs, and through discussions with West MEC, we have proposed an idea where the elementary district, which is part of Towson Union, would join the CTED. Pendergast is the other elementary district that is a CTED member and is also looking at this coding curriculum for their STEM academy. As part of those discussions, it was proposed by West MEC that we join their district. There is no tax implication to us for this question because statutorily the tax for the CTED is just 5 cents, and members of our community are already paying that on their tax bill as part of the Towson Union membership. So we simply would be asking voters to join to make our middle school kids able to take advantage of the resources of the West MEC Career Technical Education District. They have extraordinary resources, largely because their tax base is almost $17 billion in property value. By comparison, you saw in the budget slide tonight, ours is 0.3. While 300 million would be a big number to any one of us, 17 billion is a lot better when you're raising taxes, and 5 cents goes a long way with that. That school district represents almost 37% of all of the property value in Maricopa County. And Maricopa County is about 2/3 of the property value of the whole state. So being able to take advantage of those resources would be a big help to our signature programs, to our kids and our families, and making kids more aware of some of the things that are potential career and earning opportunities for them as they make their way through school. So that's factor number one. Factor number two is the cost of an election. Right now, because we already have a question on the ballot, we are sharing the cost of that ballot with Towson Union, which also has a question on the ballot. So there is a charge for the election, typically of $2.12 per registered voter. Right now, we're sharing that with Towson Union because of their question. So the cost of that is cut in half. The question itself is only $500, and then whatever pages are added to the pamphlet adds to the printing cost. If we were to do the pamphlet on its own and pay for the election cost next year on our own, it would cost us another $60,000, $75,000 from our own budget in November of 22 to try to do this as an individual question on an individual ballot. And so to save in election costs, we'd like to add this question to the ballot that's already contemplated. And to be able to tap in just for this one program alone, the support of $40,000 from WestMech to help support a coding program, I've elected to, without more notice and more deliberation, to bring this before the board tonight for discussion, so that we could take advantage of those two opportunities. And like I said, when I started out, I apologize for not having the board more time to discuss, ask questions, and contemplate this. But we've done it because we think it's a pretty unique opportunity to add program and save money at the same time for the district. So the question has been prepared by council. The resolution has been reviewed by council, and it is essentially ready to go and pretty simple because there are no tax implications for the resolution. It's just yes or no to be part of the JTED. And I'm not, because we haven't had any discussion, I'm not sure what your concerns or questions might be, but I will do my best to entertain them tonight and get you whatever information you think you need to have to make a decision, if we can.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. Any of the members of the board have any questions or comments for Dr. Freeman?
So this is Kathy. I have just a few questions. I did read the material actually several times just to make sure I tried to absorb it all. But if and when we were to join this educational center, the goal would be to have all districts, all Littleton students take advantage of this opportunity, correct?
Ms. Reyes, Mr. President, members of the board, currently we are partnering with them for career exploration and signature programs through an intergovernmental agreement that is limited to sharing a staff member who's working with our teachers and our principals on weaving some of those things, workforce awareness, into signature programs to be able to tap into additional curriculum resources they'd like us to join. So we have an existing relationship, and we really want to be able to leverage their network of business partners for opportunities for our kids. So this is really not a fresh start, but taking it to a higher level.
And I forgot that, how is this paid for? Like, is there a fund for it, or how does this get paid for, or is there even a cost for this?
The JTED has enrollment, and they have satellite enrollment, and they have central campus enrollment. Their enrollment allows them to collect an extra 0.25 in average daily membership for high school students. So a student who's full-time enrolled, say at a Peoria high school, can get an additional 0.25 weight added to the JTED. In addition to that, they levy a 5-cent property tax across all of the property in the JTED, which goes all the way out to Saddle Mountain, from the far western edge of Saddle Mountain to the Deer Valley Airport, from the boundary of Maricopa County south to the lowest reaches of Towson Union, and Gila Bend is now contemplating joining. There's several joint technical education districts in the state. The other one people are familiar with on the east side of the valley is EVIT. Phoenix Union doesn't belong to one because they have a big enough network of their own schools for their own career technical education programs. So there's several around the state that are regional, and because they have a $17 billion assessed value tax base, that nickel goes a long ways. And so that's how they're able to have the extensive resources. They also have voter approved bonds, which they've been able to use to build central campuses around the region to create some other opportunities. And so, I mean, we could have them do a presentation to the board sometime on all of the things the CTED does. I think you'd find it really interesting and be impressed with the programs they have. My real interest is for our kids and our families to know about it, so they know what kind of careers there are. There are job opportunities in workforce today that they cannot find enough candidates for. And I don't see any reason why our kids, Littleton kids, you know, if properly motivated, couldn't be qualified to have those. And some of those jobs, you know, pay $50,000, $60,000 for kids right out of high school. So we need to make sure our families and our kids know about those and are engaged in their learning in middle school and high school, so they can take advantage of it. That's more than you asked, and I apologize for that, but that is why they have a funding potential greater than ours.
Thank you. No, I couldn't agree more. Having students aware that may not want to or may not be able to, or whatever the situation is, college, this is it's an amazing program, gives children and parents another avenue. So thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
Any other comments or questions?
This is Amy, and I don't have a question, but I, in my job as a middle school teacher in another district, have listened to a lot of stuff about WestMec because they come and talk to our 8th graders, and I think it's an amazing program, and I'm excited if this passes by the voters and by us, that we could see what opportunities we can show the Littleton students.
Thank you. And it's good perspective there and help. John?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any questions. I would just echo some of the statements that have been made regarding excitement about this possibility of collaborating with WestMec and expanding, their resources into our schools. I think it's a great fit with our focus school model and some of the programs that we already are offering, and really bolstering and expanding those for our students. So I'm in complete support of this.
Thank you so much. Well, with that, then we would need, like to have a motion that we can go ahead and move forward with that.
This is Amy, and I'll move that the governing board approve the resolution ordering all matters necessary for an election to authorize the district to join Western Maricopa County Education Center District November 2nd, 2021.
This is Kathy. I'll second that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Sashnik.
Aye.
can't find the mute button and the unmute button. Sorry about that. Sometime in the past, we had talked about some information on the use of solar energy in the district here. And Mr. French, you've got some information for us to present tonight on that.
I do, President Nielsen. Thank you. Members of the governing board, Dr. Freeman, Littleton community. At a prior meeting, the board asked the administration to gather information about a potential solar project that would be funded from BROM proceeds if the November election is successful. This evening, we have invited Mr. John Mittman from Vergy to present the conceptual design of the potential solar project. At this time, I would like to turn the presentation over to Mr. Mittman and his staff.
Good evening, Governing Board, members of the community and staff. I'd like to introduce Ryan Voidick, who will open up our presentation. We will be talking about the conceptual design that we've put together so far and really giving a good picture around what the scope of the project will look like. But I will defer to Mr. Voidick on the opening slides. So Ryan, are you with us?
I am. Thank you, John. I'm still learning the mute and unmute button as well. Governing Board President Nielsen, members of the Governing Board, Superintendent Dr. Freeman, thanks for having us tonight. Like John said, my name is Ryan Voidick with Vergy. My colleague Randy Falconer is out tonight, and he asked me to fill in. I'm sure you recognize him, and I know I have big shoes to fill. So again, with us is John Mittman. I want to formally introduce John. He's the brains behind the design here, him and his team. He leads our solar group at Vergy, and we're very excited to partner and to share information on the potential of installing district-wide solar within the Littleton community. So you may know us in your district as Urban Energy Solutions and Midstate Energy. We are both Vergy companies. However, we're going through a rebranding, and going forward, we are going to be known as Vergy as a company. What's great about this is that our mission really doesn't change. We are both guided to winning energy services company within that portfolio. Prioritizing eco-friendly building and system optimizations, which we've already really implemented within your district, and you're already a beneficiary of a lot of our services that we've provided in the past with you. So our solar team is very active within the K-12 environment. Pretty much any school that you see with solar attached, we've been a part of that, either design, implementing, engineering, and installing as well, which really makes us different, is because we self-perform all of our work. John and his team do a great job. Some of the schools that we've worked with, I'm sure you heard about, Roosevelt, Baltz, Tucson Amphi, Saharita. Tucson Unified we're very, very proud of that project. That's one of the largest solar projects that completed in the K-12 market in the state. They've been recognized as a top green user in the K-12 market, and they just recently received a Governor's Award for Energy, Technology, and Innovation. So we look forward to that partnership and bringing this type of service to Littleton as well.
And I'll just add that picture there is of our recent project with Westmec. So
yes.
Westmec, we've had a great experience with them, and they're really a fantastic outfit from our experience. So been a good partner of ours.
And so what really excites us about working with Littleton is you are an innovator of the state-of-the-art facilities. You do have an environmental focus around controls and wireless technology, as you can see. And your objective is an evaluation of the district's solar potential is provided. John will walk you through that. But this is what we're looking to do, is install solar throughout the district, including the district office as well. And so we're looking at to implement the solar capabilities throughout the entire district, which is great throughout the community. You know, we get a lot of great feedback through community members, and just the fact that you're innovating and you're providing that solar capabilities to the district and potentially saving money. We get a lot of good feedback through our other partners that we've worked with in the past. So at this point, John is going to get into the nuts and bolts, and this is where I'm going to step out, and John will take over unless there's any questions from the members of the governing board. No, okay. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you, Ryan. So the first question was solar is really how does it work? You know, essentially what we're doing with these solar photovoltaic projects is harnessing the light and converting it from direct current energy to alternating current energy at the same frequency and voltage that you would otherwise receive from the utility company. So the key with the utility company is really the partnership that we create with them when we install these systems. They essentially allow for the meters to spin backwards and really give you value for the energy that's produced when you know the school doesn't use it in full at the site where it's actually being generated. So SRP in this case has a little bit of a unique take on that type of approach. It's typically called net metering. For those of you that have likely heard of it, if you have residential solar, SRP, they value the energy that's produced and sent back to their grid at the wholesale rate. And the reason that's important is that we really take a lot of effort on the front end to make sure that any projects that we develop in SRP territory are minimally sized to the extent that we're not putting a lot of energy back onto the grid. It's staying local. It's staying really at the high value for the district in the long term. Next slide, please. So at a high level, as Ryan mentioned, we are covering essentially all of the district sites, the 7 schools and the district office. The total project size is what we would call 1.5 megawatts. DC, it's essentially the rating of the panels all combined. That's a relatively large project. Over the course of a single year, that is expected to produce somewhere in the range of $230,000 worth of operational budget reduction through energy savings from the electric utility. That's roughly 50% of the energy usage across the district. And really the main benefit of shade canopies, parking canopies, is shade in general during the summer months. We've obviously experienced a massive heat wave the last couple of weeks. So, shade is great to have, and we're happy to bring it to the district along with solar. Next slide, please. So, as I mentioned, it's roughly a 1.5 megawatt project over the course of 30 years. Gross savings to the district would be in excess of $8 million, and that's assuming a nominal escalation rate over time. With SRP having the E32 rate plan, which applies for most of the district campuses, it's essentially a time of use program that shifts during the different parts of the year. So there's a winter period, a summer period, and a summer peak period. So as you can imagine, during daylight hours in the winter, 7 o'clock to 4:30, 5 o'clock, we're capturing some of the higher peak value. But in the summer, that's really where we capture a lot of the high dollar value savings. So there's some benefit there, and it's really important relative to how we design the system. In the bottom left here, it just shows you a graph of what the different scenarios would look like for payback and kind of savings over the long term. The darker blue line is essentially the gross savings number that we referenced earlier. And roughly speaking, accounting for the base project, the 8 sites now, and then also adding in a provision for the additional site that may be constructed over the next couple of years, we're in the range of $3.7 million. And that would cover the full scope of what we are showing in this presentation. Next slide, please. So what's unique about our company and how we've been able to provide value to Littleton in the past is really providing energy projects through a guaranteed mechanism where we partner to bring efficiency, bring solar to the district, and over time, the savings of that system would pay for essentially the debt service or really the cost of capital that you'd have to put out to fund that project initially. What's unique here is, the plan is to, talking with Mr. French, to really use the bond funding mechanism to try and represent or really capture operational savings to the greatest extent possible for now and in the future as well. So I know that table is likely hard to see the details on, but in year one, in the range of $230,000 of gross savings, and over time, that continues to grow as inflation, manifests itself in the utility cost paradigm. And there's significant value there that's created. So that's really the game with solar. Is it's a long-term investment. There's a lot of value there. Westmec, I mentioned earlier, is very unique in that they've actually funded their solar projects that we've partnered with them on through the bond mechanism. And what's great about it is it really translates all of those savings immediately into the operational bucket that can be, shifted to other sources. So, they're unique. It's been very successful for them, and assuming that Littleton and the district moves forward with that same approach, there's a lot of value to be gained. Next slide, please. So this is really the detail table that gives you an idea of what we're talking about at every single site. On average, in the range of 150 kilowatts per site, a total of 3,500 panels across the district. The rest of the details on that table really show what the offset and savings picture looks like at every single project. You'll see there at the bottom that we've put a placeholder to just really give a ballpark of what a similarly sized, relatively new, efficient building would require if we were planning to include that in the base project that is being contemplated. The solar value, the avoided cost, is roughly 99.1 cents per kilowatt hour, and the utility cost equivalent weighted and putting it all together is in the range of 11.9 cents a kilowatt hour. So annual savings, again, in the range of $230,000. And there's a lot of value that's created through that 55% offset target. Next slide, please. So just to give you an example of how solar really works relative to one of these schools. So as I mentioned before, SRP having a different program other than what we refer to as net metering, we really take a lot of effort on the front end to make sure that the systems are right sized, as you'll see in the bold in the bottom there, to make sure that that solar project is producing only as much as the school district needs. In this particular site, over the course of the year, every month, you can see that we are really targeting less than full offset over the course of that month, and that just helps us to make sure that the most amount of value is captured over time. So just wanted to share an example of what it would look like, and this kind of chart is roughly similar across the different district campuses. Next slide, please. So we included two documents in this board packet. This is just an excerpt of what one of our solar project designs looks like. We really try to focus on, again, parking being high value. We have also worked in many districts in shade canopy areas around picnic areas or on the outskirts of fields. At this time, we've really focused on the parking lots, and we can go into the other layouts at any point, but this is just an example. This is what we would call a double cantilever structure. This is very cost efficient. This helps us to make sure that the amount of value that we're capturing on a relative basis is as high as possible. So this is a really straightforward example of what we would be working with the district on across all of the sites. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, that particular Littleton Elementary School site included a double cantilever structure, and that is represented there on the right. That is a really efficient way for us to install steel, as everyone has likely heard. The construction materials industry right now is really difficult to manage, to say the least. So being as resource conscious as possible when it comes to planning and implementing solar is really important to make sure that we're as cost effective as possible. So in most cases, we focused on that kind of double cantilever design because it's cost effective. And in certain cases, you'll see what we would refer to as a single cantilever design, which again, still provides shade. That would typically just be on a single row of parking rather than covering both sides. But that just gives you an idea of what you'll typically see. Next slide, please. So sustainability is always important in our experience. Any of these projects that we do, it has to pencil, it has to be, feasible and really fit with other goals and objectives. But it's also a nice thing to say that, the district has really taken a significant step towards being a more sustainable campus or sustainable enterprise, if you will. So this just gives you some equivalence of really what this project would represent. So I'm just cherry picking one of these. In the range of 250 homes a year we're offsetting with this project. On a gasoline basis, 185,000 gallons of gasoline consumed that we would be offsetting through the renewable energy source that obviously goes along with the solar project. So it's great to have, and I think what's important about it as it relates to the bond funding mechanism and in comparison to the traditional solar procurement method, which is called a solar services agreement or a power purchase agreement. In those instances, the environmental attributes are owned by the third-party financier. And you'll see across the Valley, Phoenix, for the most part, all of those projects, the schools don't actually own the environmental attributes. So what's valuable here is that for Littleton, because of the way that it's funded, because of the way that you'll be owning this project, you actually can claim that 55% of your energy is renewable. So that's, if it's important to you, it is something that you can definitely recognize. Next slide, please. So we focus a lot on STEM education and outreach as it relates to the projects that we do. There's obviously a significant benefit to making the solar project that you would move forward with as accessible as possible and as much of a learning tool. We've done a lot of hands-on outreach, in-person education. We have a whole curriculum package that goes along with any of these solar projects. So this just gives you an example that we try to leverage it to the greatest degree possible to educate the students on what the new innovations are and really what renewable energy looks like in person, make it more of an approachable subject and also gain some excitement in the STEM realm around the engineering and technology that goes into any of these projects. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we do really partner with a number of different groups on innovative projects. This one in the bottom right here was a request that came in to install an off-grid shack that is solar powered and has energy storage and a control platform that allows for students to go in there and the community members as well to actually see it, feel it, really understand what I think the future will look like for many of us. Having solar more accessible, having energy storage, slightly different utility paradigm, really putting it in front and putting it out to your community to make it more accessible and also show that you are moving forward in that same direction that society is kind of pulling us towards. Next slide, please. So, for the most part, these last couple of slides are just, general in nature, so we don't have to really focus on them too much. But as Ryan mentioned, we as a company have had a lot of experience in Arizona. We've installed roughly 70% of the K through 12 solar in Arizona. We're a nationwide outfit. We have a lot of capabilities, engineering, construction, operations and maintenance, financing, development, commercial development. So a whole spectrum there. But really the key is that you're partnering with us. The most valuable thing about our approach to doing any of these projects is that we really stick around for the long term. Many projects that have been built over the years have kind of been left high and dry, and who knows, to the extent that they're actually performing the way that they should be. When we come in and we do these guaranteed packages, we really have a lot of ownership in the success long term of any of these types of projects. So just to give you an example, we're really in it for the long term, and we appreciate the partnership with Littleton. So the last slide again is just kind of gives you a sense of what we do as a company. We try to maintain a holistic approach on everything that we do. There's a lot of value to the fact that we've done efficiency measures before we've come in and recommended a solar project. That is the ideal approach. And we really try to approach any of these projects more holistically. So the other document is really focused on all of the layouts that we've prepared, preliminarily to just give you a sense of what the project might look like. But we can pause here and open it up if there are any questions.
Any member of the board have questions or comments for Mr. Littman?
This is Kathy. I have just a few, and mine are I don't pretend to understand solar, obviously, to the level you detailed it. So mine are more basic questions. In one of the slides, you indicated it's 3.66 million, and that is the potential cost, correct?
Correct.
And then I think if I read it correctly, the recovery on it was it 15 years to recover the cost, or what was that?
Correct. Yeah. So with SRP and the way that solar is typically amortized, if we were to do it in through a traditional tax-exempt municipal lease type of structure, we would have the term in the range of 20 years to make sure that there was never an out-of-pocket moment. In this particular case, I think because there's an opportunity from the bond standpoint to immediately recognize that value through the operational savings. That's the reason that we've really left it in that kind of an upfront purchase type of visual.
So that's a 15-year recovery to see the full cost back, just because of the way it's structured based on the potential bond, right?
Correct. Yeah, and again, the key there is with Salt River Project as a utility company, it's I would say that's typical. There aren't a lot of financial benefits that go along with an equivalent system that you would potentially do in Arizona Public Service territory, for example. So yeah, that is a 15-year recovery.
And so what, in a solar panel, to the degree these are, what's the life expectancy of a solar panel?
Yeah, really good question. So solar panels being solid state devices, thankfully, not a lot of moving parts there. They have a lifespan, expected lifespan, but between 30 and 40 years. So the inverter equipment, the devices that convert from DC to alternating current power, they have a lifespan of about 20 years. On a relative basis, the cost for those is low. So essentially, the long-term picture, what we've shown there is we've shown a 30-year outlook. You have your recovery at year 15, and then thereafter, it's all gravy, so to speak, all positive, and the lifespan of that system can be extended as long as 40 years and beyond. So, yeah.
So if we were to take a look at the state of Arizona and look across districts, how many districts have the kind of system that you're proposing?
Many, most, I would say, in our experience. So we're using the state-of-the-art equipment, or at least we would be implementing the state-of-the-art equipment, which is essentially the same silicon manufacturing process that all of our computer chips use is what is used to produce solar panels. So it's been a reliable, and in the financing industry, it's really coined as kind of a low risk long-term investment for groups to really gain ownership of. So yeah, many school districts, I would say the minority would be school districts that have not moved forward. In the Valley in particular, there was a wave in the early 2010 to 2014 period when there were some incentives that were available in exchange for those environmental attributes. So that's where we saw most adoption in the Valley originally, but we're at the point now where costs and everything are at a point where the projects can still pencil and be quite successful over the long term. Yeah, with kind of the modern solution.
And then just one more, not question to you, but one more comment more. With the $3.66 million potential investment, assuming the bond passes, I don't have a feeling, it's more of a comment. Putting this on the bond, I mean, how would the community receive it as, this is, is this a successful project for us to be, is there something better we could do with our money? I'm not suggesting there is or there isn't. It's just something I'm going through my head now and going, okay, this is subject to the bond passing. Is it the best investment in a bond? So more of a comment, and I thank you for your answers.
Thank you.
Any others? John or Amy?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I guess my first question is, the parking structure seems like a significant component of this project. Do we kind of know what percentage of cost the parking contributes to the project?
So as it relates to the parking element of it, as compared to, I guess let me ask you, do you mean the structure itself?
Well, I think my question is, so I'm assuming there's a significant cost associated with building parking structures at all of our locations. And granted, there's an additional benefit of providing shaded parking for our staff and visitors. But I'm guessing what I'm trying to get at is, as opposed to, let's say, putting them on the roof, like how much more does parking structures add to the overall cost of the project?
Yeah, good question. So roughly 10% as compared to a system that you would put on a rooftop. The key thing to consider there is, if you were to look at rooftop projects that have been done previously, and what it really would require to allow you to move forward down that path. Now, we have actually been contracted in a number of different cases to actually come in and relocate these solar systems off of rooftops because of maintenance and warranty issues, and put them onto shade canopies. In our experience in Arizona, 98% of the solar projects that have been done have been on carport or shade canopies. It doesn't really matter that they're in the in the parking lots. It would be the same structure that would be in the kind of field and recreation outskirt areas. So does that answer your question?
No, I appreciate that. So it sounds like just from a logistical standpoint, on roof placement isn't an ideal option. So I appreciate that clarification. And I don't know if this isn't anything positive or negative, but I've actually been reading a little bit recently about sanctions potentially on Chinese solar panels, and would that increase the cost, or do you guys use American solar panels, or are kind of your take on that current event that's happening?
Yeah, so it's there may be a current update on some of those efforts, but they've actually been to a degree playing out over the course of a few years. We've most Chinese-made solar modules have been under the import tariffs for the past 3 years. I would say in general, most of the semiconductor manufacturing facilities that produce solar panels are overseas in some way. We do have options that are stateside. In our experience, what we like to do is not so much focus on the origin location, but just to make sure that at the end of the day, you have the best product that's available, and really having a tier 1 provider that's a bankable institution that's part of a larger organization. We source basically whatever the market can provide that has the best quality available, and at times, if it's from a Chinese manufacturer, those post tariff costs are comparable or really lower at times than some of the alternatives.
Thank you for that. Just a comment at this point, certainly extremely supportive of the idea of solar panels, and not only from an operational savings standpoint, but an environmental responsibility and sustainability standpoint. What I will say is I'm not 100% sure or sold, if you will, on bonding for the solar panels. I think just from my perspective, I'd like to explore some alternative finance vehicles for funding it. And I understand the point, but that you've made throughout this. However, when we bond, that money gets shifted onto our secondary tax rate, and our taxpayers end up paying for it in their property tax, and it's generating operational savings out of our M&O. So it seems to me like there might be a way of paying for this using the savings from our operational savings out of our M&O budget without shifting any of that cost onto our secondary tax rate. So again, I don't really know enough about it to make a judgment at this point, but certainly before committing, I'd like to explore that a little bit further regarding what those alternative finance vehicles might look like. But thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate this item coming forward tonight and the opportunity to learn more about it.
Thank you. If I may add, what's also valuable about this solar project is that it gives you flexibility going forward to explore some of the additional innovations that we're starting to see become more widespread, and more specifically referring to electric vehicles and potentially electric fleets. We do have some aspects of our company that are involved in fleet electrification, and having the infrastructure from a local power generation standpoint to support the charging of those fleets is just an additional value add. I know it's not related to the questions, but that thought came to mind, so just wanted to share it.
Thank you. Any other, Amy, anything from you or just? If not, I think the only comment that I think the only comment that I've got, Kathy, I've got those on my house in 2013. I fit right into that period that he was talking about there. At that time, they told me the inverter was good for 10 years and the panels were good for 20 years. The technology's changed so much in the last 5 years or 8 years that we're up to an inverter that's good for 20 years and panels that are up to 30 or whatever he stated there. I think that was one aspect of it. The other thing, the net metering point of it was with SRP. You would actually, I don't know what the number is, 90%, 80%, whatever is what you would produce so that we don't exceed what that net metering would be for SRP's requirements, right?
That's why we're at 55%.
Yeah, so
So that's what that's what the 55 is. And there was one other question I was going to ask. Oh, the $3.6 million that would put out those 15 years, the savings would go all the way back to pay off that debt, the $3.6 million. Would there be anything left over for features, raises, or anything else like that, or not until the 15 years are consumed and done?
So, Mr. President, members of the board, Mr. Rader, Ms. Reyes, the item tonight is information and certainly can lead further discussion of members of the board. If you remember the chart where he took all the schools, added up and got to the bottom, the annual savings was about $240,000 per year. So if the nice thing over 10 years, all you got to do is add a zero, that's 2.4 million. Another 5 years is 1.2 on top of that. So that's how you get to 3.6 million in 15 years. If you did a operation savings plan, we would borrow the 3.6 million, pay interest on it to another company. The 240,000 would make payments on that debt for 15 years. If you borrow from the taxpayers in an assessed, an assessed property tax, you can pay for your solar up front, and then the 240 million can go into programs for kids to raise achievement. If you financed it for 15 years out of operations, 15 years from now, let's say if we did it now, there would be 240,000 a year savings. So what we've done in the past with LED lighting, air conditioner efficiency, and those things is to borrow the money, make payments on it with the savings. That is energy savings contracts. We've done several of those, but not with solar. And Ms. Reyes was on the board at the time. The board wasn't really sure about the energy savings, the maintenance, the lifespan of solar at the time, and took a very conservative approach. And that's why we're one of the few districts that still hasn't done this. But as you mentioned, Mr. President, the technology is advanced, the efficiency is advanced. This would not be one of the first bond projects out of the chute because Alamar would take priority, but the board could sell bonds to pay for solar, sell bonds to pay for some of the solar and finance the rest of the solar. So when the time would come to look at the financing proposal and actually have an action item before the board, still would probably be a couple of years down the road. And if there's inflation on these products, the projects might even be a little smaller. You might be down to 50% because we would definitely, want to live within our means as far as financing. What they did is they looked at a footprint to meet the energy demand at each campus at about that rate, making sure we're not going over in the metering. And these are theoretical proposals to help inform the board So the potential savings, of course, are in energy efficiency, but in adding nearly $250,000 a year into the operational budget of finance through the secondary rate, or using an efficient or a energy savings model and financing it out of programs, which is all of the salaries and services we provide to families, or some combination could even be a possibility down the road.
Thank you, Dr. Freeman. So essentially today is the presentation on the project and what the potentials are. At a future time, we can get more into the details and the financing aspect of it and see how and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, and remember that the question that member Rader asked was, if we're going to put this on a bond election, I'd like to know more about it. If people ask me, I hope now all the members feel like they're a little more educated in solar, how it works, the potential cost and savings of a project that size.
If I may, just one thing I'd like to see brought with when there is appropriate discussion. I do agree with Mr. Rader's statement is that I'm not sure putting this on bond is perhaps the right way. I'm certainly all about the environment, but I would like maybe to explore other options of how we could finance it, what it would look like, what does it mean, versus just relying on passing of a bond with the money. So if you could bring that back when it's appropriate at looking other options, I would certainly like to look at them as well.
Well, assuming the bond passes, we'll have options, and if it doesn't, we'll have the decision whether to move forward or not with our own kind of energy savings agreement. Back to those limited options. And right now, Ms. Reyes, Mr. President, Mr. Rader, members of the board's not locked into that 3.6 million number.
Oh, okay, that's what I didn't understand. Thank you.
Yeah, you will have, the way the question is worded is improvements to the site, including solar, are all part of a package. The only thing that's separated from that is the part for maintenance, and because it's not, it's administrative, and the line for technology and equipment. So the board will have, should the question pass, a great deal of discretion down the road in how they want to design those systems. And we did that intentionally, knowing that first of all, conditions can change, and secondly, board members can change. So you would just be in a better position to weigh those things and decide what's most prudent for the district at that time, Ms. Reyes.
All right. Thank you for your comment, question. Thank you, Mr. Littleton, if you're still here for your presentation here tonight. Are there any other things that appears to me to be the last item on here other than an adjournment? We get a motion to adjourn.
I'll move the governing board adjourn.
This is Amy, and I'll second.
Mr. Nielsen,
Aye.
Mr. Rader,
Aye.
Mrs. Reyes,
Aye.
Mrs. Soshnick.
Aye.
Just as a reminder, the next board meeting is the 13th of July, and then we'll have a special board meeting on the 27th of July. So, thank you all for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Great discussion.